And welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me on another of my interview series. Today I'm going to be talking to David Edelman, who is an author and educator. He's otherwise known as the People's Lawyer. We're going to be looking at a little bit about law. David, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Richard. Total pleasure to be here.
It's so nice to talk to you because I was reading in a book that we've been talking to the authors Gloria Moss and Catherine Armitage recently, in this book called Light Bulb Moments and the Power of Critical Thinking. And there's a piece about you which I believe you probably wrote and submitted to the book. And it talks about you as the people's lawyer, educating people in, well, you're going to correct me, I know this. I thought you were educating people in common law and how to get out of difficult situations that might arise. So it's possible that I often make mistakes, so I put my hand up to that. But I thought you'd be an interesting person to talk to because we've been talking about constitution, we've been talking about natural law, God's law, common law, those sort of things. And you, I think, are a lawyer, but you don't so much give advice, but you educate people on different aspects of law. Is that right?
It is right, but it's law that I've basically self-educated myself on, because my original training, which was in the law as the system presents it, which is not true law, didn't really give me much grounding in how to protect people really from tyrannical systems.
Right.
So since, in particular, the CV19 issue, I don't know how much you want to allow me to name it by name, but let's call it the CV19 issue. There's been a massive upsurge in interest in freedom, all things freedom and all things protection against tyranny. I had been studying the law for some time before CV19, and basically when it happened, there was a call from my friends and associates to say, David, you need to put your knowledge into action, get out on the streets and evolve your course, because I was already giving a course. It started out as a come to my house course, and then it evolved into a Zoom call course. And it's designed to help people really clear their heads on who they are, because the system has made our heads really fuzzy and taken away all our sense of self and who we are. So it's not so much that I teach the common law, because the common law, as has been handed down to us, is in suspension until further notice, until we the people reassert it. You can only assert it by not engaging with the system. So you'd be asserting, in effect, common sense, the knowledge of who you are, and keeping just out of range of the tentacles of the beast. Yeah. That's the secret. And I have a job on my hands because people have been trained in their schooling, and I did watch your schooling, your education show yesterday. Found it fascinating, because I have a current talk about that, because although I am the people's lawyer, I started out before CV19 as the people's educator, which is where I came into that book that you've just mentioned,
right,
on critical thinking, because although they're learning all the lies and virtually everything we've ever been told by anyone is false.
Yes, this is a huge thing to comprehend, because when you believe the image of the world that you've created over time, it's very difficult to suddenly say, actually, all of that is just theatre. How do you approach turning what is real into reality, when there must be a lot of prejudice and a lot of pushback from people who are going, no, I know that this must be the situation because I've lived it and been in it, and it is what it is.
Well, Larkin Rose, the presenter in America, divides people up into statists and voluntarists. Some people are born with a propensity to trust their government, their nanny state, their teachers, their doctors, their lawyers, their dentists, etc., etc. That's the vast majority. And the beauty of I nearly said the word entirely. CV19.
It's all right, yeah.
Yeah, the beauty of that is that it awakened many people to the fact that perhaps statism is not the best way to go. Now, I had a privileged upbringing in the sense that I always.
So I'm just gonna show you this real quick, and I'll turn David back on. Here's the one I was talking about, the lowriders. This is the angle and the depth for the lowriders. Her face is here, shoulders, arms coming down. She's got these nice big boobies, and here's her legs, here's her waistline. I won't distract you with the other images that are within her, and this is a video, a 48-second video of somebody using some filters. They're obviously glass filters, but they're nice.
Had a skepticism of all things state-run, all things institutional, and it wasn't that I knew anything that nobody else did. It was just more of a hunch. And then it led me to leave the legal profession very early. I was still only in my mid-20s, and go.
So Richard, here's your bald guy. Here's your bald guy with the blue filter. See his left eye right here? And this is his right eye. The other day we were looking at a different telescope. This is a reverse telescope, I believe. I always get them mixed up though, so who knows. But I'm going to turn my cropper a little bit this way so I can get his right eye, his left eye nice for you. His nose is right there, mouth is right here. Sideburns, ear, bald head. See him? You can even get a little bit of his neck in here and everything too. His neck is here. Beard, mustache, some hair, lip hair. There he is.
Go on a journey of self-definition. So I've been defining my own life for a very, very, very long time. So when it came to responding to CV19 and living a life which had no restrictions on it, it was easy for me because I've been living my own life for so long. I didn't have anyone breathing down my neck threatening to divorce me.
So here's another one, kind of baldy, using the same exact beard going in the other direction. Eye, nose, mouth, using the same beard. Same sideburn shit going on over here. I don't make his ear out though. And if I go too far over, I gotta stay right at his eye in order for you to get him. Looks like this one might have hair though. That one looks like it might have some hair up there. So I go like that. And I don't know how good you can see him or not. We'll see. It's nice with the filter. Next one I'm going to be going for when I turn it back on is this guy here. Remember the guy with the chain around his neck? Shoulder, eye, nose, mouth. Also looks like wearing apparel on his head. But like I said, wearing apparel is just us seeing what we want to see. I would more or less take that as an afro, seeing that the image is a black human.
Or evict me, or do anything untoward that would put me up.
And just to let you know too, this one here goes from a black human to a Indian, Eastern Indian facial features, and bounces around as you change angles of perspective. Just like
That would coerce me back into my place as a good little slave. Now, alluding to something that you just said, it's for some people who have taken on marriage, children, mortgage, cars, career, it's not so easy, and we have to be a little bit more patient and understanding with people like those, because they are walking through treacle. And you know, the best we can do is say, all right, stop what you're doing, don't walk any further, don't go backwards, just stand still and have a think.
And I mean, one of the things that I found, somebody said to me very early on, he said, just entertain some of the ideas that you're going to discover. Don't put your ego in that shuts it down. Just entertain them, let them stay there, so that you're not saying yes or no, but you're just able to think about things which often go against what you know or have believed all your life, and then you start to let that percolate in as you start to make a judgment. Well, actually, is that true or is that not true, or where, how do I feel about it, without shutting down an argument straight away. I found that a very useful technique, to just say, okay, I'm just going to entertain it, I'm just going to accept that that is a potential thing, I'm not going to say yes or no. So that worked for me. Now, have you been, I mean, I'm self-employed, and I've been self-employed pretty much all my life. So when you talk about people with who are married and they're in jobs and things like that, you're taking on a lot of other people's philosophy as well as yourself. Whereas I've been pretty much independent and able to go, actually, do you know what? I just don't, I don't get involved with the state. Take us through perhaps an approach that you would to somebody who is coming to you in some state, and you're trying to educate them. What are we? Where do we start with this?
Well, I use the power of the question. I used to use the power of the exclamation, and then I soon realised that just doesn't work. It just raises their heckles, their defences, and creates barriers and obstacles. Because I don't have that deferential tone of voice that would make people think that how can I put it? It's kind of, sometimes there's a tone of sarcasm in me that just rears its ugly head, and I find I get people's backs up. So what I do is I ask relevant questions, and in particular, now that I'm doing talks, and I have been doing for some time, I give people, my audience, who are either awake or waking up, a sample of questions that I would ask given the opportunity. Now, there are so many people who are so close-minded, mainly because they've been to school where their minds were shut down, their brains were closed off to all things mystical and all things quantum and all things full of human potential, that people's minds are so closed down that it's actually not very likely that someone's going to come to me anymore, or to you, and say, I'm really confused, please help. In fact, I don't remember the last time it happened, to be quite honest. So all you can do is put information out there on your social media, drop the odd leaflet in places. And I remember 3 years ago, me and a graphic artist created a CV19 questionnaire, and it was it had lovely sort of teenage visuals. It was done like a sort of allegory, with some of the imagery was reminiscent of the Garden of Eden. Some of it was, it was very pictorial. So you have to make people keep them relaxed, entertain them as you, that's the word you used, and use above all the question and humour. So what I've tried to do in the last year or two is outgrow my sarcasm, which is based in, I can't believe that they don't know this, or that they don't even want to know this, and use irony rather than sarcasm, and therefore don't alienate them, don't make them think that I'm a potential enemy. It's still hard work, because when someone is shut down and you start talking what I would simply call common sense, you can see it's like they go, it's that their eyes glaze over, they look down at the ground, and you can tell that they cannot wait for you to either A, shut up, or B, walk away.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
And I think you're absolutely right there, because I've noticed if I'm talking to somebody about something I've found out about, and I feel passionate about sharing because I think it's for the good of the nation, sort of thing, and I'm talking to one, you get that feeling that, I'm now saying something which is almost beyond their ability to accept, and I need to stop, because it would be too easy to keep adding and adding to try and convince them. But actually, if I do that, they've shut down even further. whereas a question, and this is why my channel started to get busy with viewers, because I was saying, why is it the government are doing this, and why would they, if they're there for us, be doing this? And I would just let the audience answer the questions, and of course that was actually educating me at the same time. So it was a very useful tool. You mentioned common sense. Can you explain what you mean by? Because before we recorded, I said to you, can we talk about common law? And you said to me, well, I don't call it common law, I call it common sense. So could you explain a bit about what you mean by common sense? What is the common sense that you would say that is what you live by?
Well, let me give you a recent example of, I think the guy's name is Matt Walsh, and he's a documentary maker in the States.
Oh, yeah.
And he went to one of the African countries because there is a current woke conundrum about the identity of being able to define what a woman is. And he went to, I can't remember, I won't say which country it is because I honestly can't remember it, but he was interviewing the locals there, the natives to that country, and he was asking them what they, how they would define a woman. And they looked at him as if he was absolutely insane.
Mm.
And they simply said to him, well, if you don't know what a woman is, we can't really take you very seriously. And this is a classic example that Western society has lost the plot when it comes to common sense. And we shouldn't really even need to be having these conversations about what a woman is, because common sense would tell us. We shouldn't need to be wearing masks because common sense would tell us that that's only for someone who's working on a building site that doesn't want to inhale dust. We shouldn't be taking jabs because we don't know what's in them. So we don't even need to know what's in them. All we need to know is that we don't know what's in them. So why would we put something in our blood when we don't know what the contents of the injection are? So these are little common sense tips, tricks, and hacks, which are based in primordial survival need and primordial knowing, which runs through our heart, basically, and both parts of our brain. But at school, they ignore, I say in my talks that they essentially ignore the four main brains, which is head, left brain, head, right brain, heart brain, and gut brain. And 3 out of those 4 brains are completely neglected, and only one tiny part of the left.
It's so true too. This dark spot right here, this face right here, this turns into a female body laying down when I come over this way. Let's see if I can get her today. Hold on.
Brain in the head is used. So common sense comes from the judicious use of all those 4 brains. And schooling is deactivating the use of those brains. And a question that I would ask to highlight the lack of common sense in current thinking is something, again, I feature in my talk, is about carbon dioxide. And I simply ask, is carbon dioxide a pollutant, or is it a nutrient, a life-giving nutrient? Now, all you need is you don't need to be a scientist.
Okay, in the last video I was saying we only had her, where's my thing? We only had her I'm doing this upside down, nose and mouth, her body image. This is going in the opposite direction though, because on this side, her arm goes back this way, holding her tail, and we only had her up to here. And I told you that was going to be one of the timelines. See the timelines? See them? Like almost see the timeline? Hundreds of them in here. But see them? See them all? See those lines? Those are the timelines. So as the moon is returning through our sky in a clockwise rotation, these timelines are all subtracting some of the imagery, telling us things as it's going around. And no one's paying attention. But there she is anyways with her hair, a cropper, hair flowing off that way. Her best angle is probably over here somewhere. It's not easy to do upside down, but somewhere around there. But I just wanted to point that out, that you see what I mean? How all this was missing on that other moon video that I had going.
You just need a little modicum of common sense to know that it's the gas of life.
Yeah.
No carbon, no life, no humanity.
What's
This
interesting?
is what I mean by common sense.
Yes, and you start to wonder whether the sense that you say is it actually common anymore, common amongst us all, or whether these days it's a few people that seem to have this sense. It's almost now as if it's a rare thing. And on the gas of life business, I mean, if ever I do any talks about global warming and I mention not H2O, carbon dioxide, and I say it's the gas of life, and exactly along the lines of, is it a pollutant? And people will say, but water, if you have too much water, you'll...
You guys could explain that a little bit further, and people might get to understand it. I doubt it, but you never know. But you could just explain that without the carbon dioxide, plants don't know how to use the ultraviolet light. They need the carbon dioxide to, the same way that I was telling you that humans and plants need the ultraviolet light to create vitamin D, so that our bodies create vitamin D. It's the same thing with the plants. They need the ultraviolet light in order to, the carbon dioxide in order to properly absorb the ultraviolet light.
You'll drown. If you drink too much water, it's not good for you. It's about the degree, about how much you have, and so they start to muddy the water, so to speak, by bringing in other things. And you're saying, yeah, but is it a bad thing, full stop, or is it a good thing? Why do they pump CO2 into grid?
Okay, so all this guy's doing is he's got a photograph of a moon and he's changing filters. So that's all he's doing. This is not a video of the moon. This is not a 48-second video of the moon. This is a 48-second photograph of the moon that he keeps putting filters over, which is fine. I mean, the imagery's fucking banging. I would highly suggest anyone come to this video, because it's our photograph, I should say, because he's putting the filters on there for you. Look at the imagery; it's freaking banging. Look at the bald guy, right? Oh no, that's not the bald guy, but this is, yeah, that's him. So eye, nose, mouth, beard, sideburns. Can't see his other sideburn from this angle, but I'll take the camera off. Looks like he's got hair going around here on this one though. And then you got this other one, the other one I was pointing out to you, just with the blue filter, which is the eye, nose, mouth right here, sharing that same eye. But with the filter on, with the red filter on, he doesn't look as bald. Let's see. I'm getting a hairline out of him with the red filter. With the blue filter, I didn't get the hairline. Let's see. There you go. Look how clear that is. There he is that way. Yeah, he is bald. He's remaining bald because I can get his eyebrows in this direction. His eye, his eyebrow, his eye, his eyebrow, his nose, his mouth, his beard, sideburn, bald head. Let me try to crop them. Let me turn these guys back on.
Greenhouses so that they can grow tomatoes and other plants like that. Without it, they would not be as prosperous as they were, and we wouldn't have the crops that we have.
And when someone responds to our common sense with a spurious piece of nonsense, what they are doing is actually gaslighting us.
That's beautiful.
And it features prominently hugely in my current talks, because I don't want to, well, spoiler alert, folks, but the N word. No.
How my videos are not getting tens of millions of fucking views and shares and everything, I don't get it. For what I'm showing you, I was watching my videos back again yesterday, and it's just unbelievable to me that no one's seeing this yet. No one gets it. 6 years into it.
Narcissism features very highly in my current talk, which is called From Globalist Control to Sovereign Freedom, which I'm going all around the country doing. And this is what happens when you talk to a narcissist. They will not allow you to win any perceived debate. They must have the last word, and they do feel better when you walk away feeling frustrated or thwarted in some way.
So true.
So it's not an even playing field. We think that we're talking to people who are as very much...
Okay, we're going to switch over to the other one now. Now that we did that one, we're going to switch over to the other one, which is this one. Okay, so the same eye used for this other face. And I'm trying to see if he looks bald with the red filter or not. Because that one definitely is bald. I mean, I can see right through his eyebrows and he's bald. But this one looked like it had hair in it, so let me crop him out.
Much as reasonable and as intelligent as we are.
At this angle.
And very often, that is just not the case. They may be as intelligent, but they are rarely as reasonable.
This one.
Yes, well, I can go along with that. You mentioned there from the globalist to sovereign freedom. Can you explain what you mean by sovereign freedom? I think we all know what globalists are and what they're trying to do, and people are sort of are beginning to understand that. It's the fact that there might be a way out of it, and what it actually might look like.
Well, in my talk, I describe the essential difference between a sovereign and a slave. And I boil it down to slaves need permission while sovereigns do not. So if you feel that you need permission to do anything like watch TV, and in the world of commerce, permission is referred to as a license. If you feel that you need a license to drive, a license to watch TV, a license to do anything, a license to fish, whatever, then you
It's got hair in that one.
Abdicated responsibility for your own life.
So with the red filter, he's got hair. With the blue filter, he looks bald. On that image. I can't really make out the hairdo though. I can just see that I lose the shine of the bald head. So that's what's making me say that. Let's see. There he is right there. Trying to get it. I'm gonna crop down to his eyes. Maybe I'm cropping too high, and that's why he seems like he's getting hair. So maybe that's another angle or distance of perspective thing. I'm trying to see if I can get him to go bald again. Okay, maybe that's it. When I'm down further, let me mess around a little bit.
You have surrendered sovereignty on that issue to an institution or a perceived higher authority, and you have in effect let yourself and the side down. And the side, of course, is sovereign humanity. And what this current period in history is going to allow us to do is to recover that sovereignty initially as individuals and then eventually as a collective. And when we realize that we don't need permission, for example, when you go to school, they are now teaching, and I think this came up in your talk yesterday, so I'm just reiterating what the young lady said, that you cannot say no and you cannot ask why.
Yeah, I mean, that's just absolutely awful.
So this requires an immense pushback, because if you cannot say no and you cannot ask why, then who are you? You're certainly not a sovereign. So if you're not a sovereign, there's no fence to sit on, you're a slave. It's one or the other.
And as a young person
Okay,
who
let's see
has
if
no
it changes
experience and is growing up, and you're thrust into an institution that you've never asked to go, and you're being taught things you've never entered your head about, and you're suddenly being told this is how you've got to behave, you can't say no, you've got to obey, and it's as overt as that. It's very difficult for somebody who has no experience of life to push back against that. And if parents are ignorant of that as well, then there's no intervention. And as a parent, you're the guardian of your child and should be educating your child in that.
Okay, so that bald guy, I just found an angle now that I had this guy's video, but here's a hairline for it. So he does look bald at that other angle. So if my camera's way over here to the left, looking up to the right, then this whole forehead area here, and if I have him cropped right there, then that's why he appears to be a bald guy. There he is, with the hair around the, the beard and the hair around the ears and everything. And coming back up this way, same thing. All of this is used as see this for a minute. There he is. So right there is one, and then I lose the larger one. I'd have to find it the other angle. And there's that one. Because then there's this one too that I was saying earlier is one of the timelines. See this dark area that goes like this? That ends up being one of the timelines as well. So when you look at the timeline of what cuts in and out as the moon's crescent comes around here and goes like this, that would be this side of my cropping tool, for example, just like this. So one night, I don't know when, we got to pay attention. So one night the crescent's going to come through like this. The electromagnetic nanocurrent is it's going to be right here. Where it's going to be here, what country is it over, what state is it over, where are all the stars locked in at the exact moment that this is cropping out this exact image fully. This, not only that image, but all the images within it. But this is one of the timelines. So this is important. This is more important than all the other stars, all the other stationary stars lineups. This particular area, and I'm not saying just only this one, but all these timelines, because they're all cutting out certain images as the timelines are being cut. Here's another one. So this is a timeline right here. So I'm going to line this up. So when that timeline is right here, you'll notice, and by the way, this is one of the Disney characters, by the way. So see this line right here? So boom, I line my right here. So at some point when this moon is spinning through the sky, this timeline is going to be lined up. Maybe a little more drastic than that, because I am holding my cropper and a stick and my face is stuck against the camera, so I'm having a hard time. So right about there, and that leaves this whole image here from this little bit of hair that she's got here. She looks like a female image because the eyes look female in several different directions. I'll bring you in on her later. I have to bring you in on an angle. But here's another thing. Here's this timeline. And look at this. Eye, nose, mouth of that guy that I was calling the bald guy, but now we can see in this guy's photograph you've got a little bit of hairline up here. So at one angle, he's going to be, and it might even be another timeline. I don't know. I have to go and look. There's the bald guy. When you lose the hairline on top, he ends up being a bald guy with a beard. Then I come over this way. I line him back up this way. On this timeline, boom. Now he's got hair going on up here, or something of that along those lines. I would assume hair rather than wearing apparel, even though I want to say it looks like a bandana tied around his head, but that's just me seeing what I want to see. So these are the timelines. We're establishing timelines in these last few videos. I'm showing you the imagery. I'm showing you how to easily find it, because again, look, the general shadows are all over the place. Where you're going to find his eyes? Right here in the Sea of Tranquility. So you want to make sure the Sea of Tranquility is at the top of your screen. You want to make sure all these shadows that you don't see anything and you don't know nothing. Then you hold your cropper up and start looking around and you'll find him. And yeah, he's definitely goes from bald to hair, back and forth. So that might be another timeline. Matter of fact, it is another timeline. Hold on a minute. I'll do it with my eyes over the screen and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Because I just looked over the screen. Let me see. So it's right there. Yep. It's a fucking timeline. Because look. It's this one. It's this exact timeline. That's the timeline that makes the hairline of the bald guy that I just had on there. No. I lost him. I gotta come back over here. I gotta find my angle again. Because now what I did this way is I just caught the eye of this other large image, and again, it falls on a timeline. Yeah. I've been reconfirming the timelines for a few months now, maybe longer. Let's see. Since the Harold Gott series. Wow. So I found the timelines in the Harold Gott series. Once I got the idea of checking into it, it took me a few months to get a bunch of moon videos, and then I started following the timelines and seeing if they really, if the moon shadow really did, because it's not a moon shadow, that's why, but following the timelines and see if they blacked out, and they do, and they do. And then I said to myself, well, what would make the most sense? It'd make the most sense if it's cutting out certain imagery. Every time the moon comes through, it's cutting out certain imagery. Then don't you think we should be paying attention to what imagery it's cutting out? Isn't that going to tell us something? Especially if you add up the fact that all the stationary stars are mapped out in the moon. So therefore, if what I'm telling you is correct, is I won't call it a theory. It's a fact. You guys can call it theoretical if you want to, but the fact is the stationary stars are mapped out in the moon, and the energy comes down through the moon, through the earth, and then back out the other side and through another moon, and then back out to another identical set of stationary stars. And that's where the entire energy goes back and forth from. Because it probably, just easy guess, right? It's going to go both ways through Polaris, because Polaris is going to go from the ground to the veil, and then it's going to filter out into the stationary stars and all come back down through that way. That would make sense. It just makes sense. So you can see most of that happening. So I cannot get you to the other side of the earth, but if you guys are going to see the moon come through the sky and say that the light from the moon is sun bouncing off the moon and ridiculous nonsense like this, and go along with stupid shit in your school system about that you're spinning at 1,100 miles an hour and you're flying in through the vast of outer space at 10,000 miles an hour, and the moon is going around us at 2,200 miles an hour, and they're a ball and we're a ball, and all this fucking ridiculous shit, and satellites and space aliens and Elon Musk's and all this fucking nonsense, and NASA, and oh my god. No wonder everybody's so fucking intelligent, man.
enough so that once they're of a certain age, that they can stand on their own and push back against people who are being overtly authoritarian to them. And that I think when we exposed that in the video yesterday, in the interview yesterday, I think that's had a huge effect on people thinking, bloody hell, that's not right. And clearly it isn't. But that asking for permission that we've indoctrinated our kids, and to an extent, a lot of us are like that, and we saw that during lockdown. How do you push back when it appears the full force of government and its authority, the police and all the sort of people in authority, doctors and mainstream media, are pushing out this one very solid message? You must, for example, in that case, take a jab, or you must stay inside, you must obey our law. How do you push back against that?
Okay, well, I'm going to give two answers to that question. It may turn into three, and I'm going to pull something out of the hat that is relevant, again, to your conversation on education that you had yesterday.
Thank you.
So the first thing I would say that you do to push back is to be yourself. And I'm going to give a very specific example of how I was myself at a certain key moment in time back in the so-called lockdown. I was giving a little speech, and it was a very little speech because I had an audience of about 3 or 4. And I was in Macclesfield in Cheshire, that I describe as arguably the nation's most evil town. And I hope they're watching, because I want them to know that if they don't already. Now, why do I describe Macclesfield as the nation's most evil town? Well, I had rocked up with my little PA and a few friends, and I was giving them a little talk about the truth behind CV19, and in fact, that no one has ever isolated a virus, there's nothing to fear but fear itself, etc., etc. I had the day in question was known as Treacle Market Day, and nothing to do with treacle. It's just an ancient story about a horse that drops a cargo of treacle, and it turns out that that's the site that they have the market on. And so there was about 6.
I'm going to get interrupted in a minute. So I love how these turned, these images, because watch when I crop them. I love the way they turn and the way this works. It's really cool.
6 stall holders, because it was lockdown, social distancing, and normally there's about 60 or 30. And there was hardly any customers because people were still frightened of going outside. And I rock up, and it's almost like a ghost town, and I start saying what I'm saying. And 1 or 2 of the stall holders come over to me and say, "You can't say that. You're killing our business." I said, "I beg your pardon." I said, "This is lockdown. You haven't got any business. I'm just here to give you a way out." And anyway, long story short, I had passers-by trying to pull out the cords from my PA system, and I had one particular stallholder come up to me, face up to me, take a close-up picture, and says, "Next time you're in Macclesfield, I'll be waiting for you." So amid all this passive-aggressive, actually not that passive at all, nonsense, I then had a gaggle of officious, yellow-vested, high-vis vested council workers who came up to me and says, "Do you have a license to emit amplified sound?" And obviously I didn't, so we're back to license and permission. I just said to them, "No, I don't have a license, but I'm just speaking using a microphone and a speaker. But if you think that that's a legal problem, then I suggest you contact your legal department, who can then contact my legal department, and we can thrash this out using paperwork." In other words, that was my polite way of saying, you can piss right off.
Bog off.
I'm doing what I'm doing, and I don't need your permission. Thank you. Now, we were in daylight hours, so nobody could argue that I was creating a public nuisance. And I was prepared to lower the volume just in case someone came out from a house saying, "I'm a shift worker, I'm trying to sleep, could you lower the volume?" And I would have done.
Yes.
And that's back to common sense.
Yeah, this is fucking blowing my mind tonight. All right. So this timeline right here. Here's the Sea of Tranquility. Here's the circle that's right in the center that all the lines come out of. I've been talking about this since I found the timelines. So all the timelines appear to be running out of here. They do break off and they do go in different directions and shit, as I have found, but they also do what we call hooks. These all have to mean something. I don't know what they mean, but we'll find out. I, I, nose, mouth. Same guy that I was telling you about being bald, because I was down here, and again, not having certain moons. I'm learning right now at this moment. You're watching me watch the builders as they work, and I'm watching what's going on here. So this timeline right here is the one that I'm going to pay attention to now on that particular image. Large guy, eye here, you can see the definition in his face, everything. Now, I can, of course, cut him to a lot of different ways. Like I can cut him to here, and we can cut off other parts of his face. And we're going to bring it to, let's say, right here. Again, timeline. This is a timeline. So now I'm going to be watching, is this going to end up being the timeline? So which timeline works what? So if the moon's coming through and all of a sudden this, let's say we get cropped, it's day one, day two, day three. We go through all these lines as we're coming through. We don't know which line it's going to fall on. I certainly don't yet. I don't know which line it's going to fall on for each moon cycle of each particular month. So let's say in October we run this line, and then this line, and then this line. Now, where is it going to be? What position in the sky is the moon on the day, hour,